all discharged, that we were just one out of a million, you're just another vet.
How long did it take you to get a job?
Well, I didn't get it. I didn't go to work right away. I waited my time to go to college under the GI Bill of Rights, which meant I had an adjustment period of the time of discharge. Let's just say, let's say from the 1st of November until February 1st, 4 months, whereby I went to college under the GI Bill of Rights. Now, the time the GI Bill of Rights gave a veteran one of three choices, or maybe even more. One was a college education with tuition paid, of course, cheap. College was very cheap at the time, or a loan of $10,000 with which to buy a farm or a home, or to.
So where did you go?
Excuse me.
Where did you go to school?
Right close by the home. I could walk down to the college. It was called Manhattan College for Engineers, and I could walk to college from my house, right across the park. Let's say half an hour.
So you got what kind of degree did you end up getting?
Industrial technology, but not from the same college. I transferred, and I came out 2 years later to a college up here, Flagstaff, Arizona, where I finished up my technical courses, and also I took up teaching of metal shop and metallurgy and mathematics at the new college.
Okay. Couple of questions in conclusion.
Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
How do you think that your time in World War II affected the rest of your life?
Oh, very, very, very deeply, of course. Gave me a great deal of insight into human nature, for one thing. Gave me a great deal of insight as to how people talk about bragging, and also cowardliness, and also honor, and
continue.
And just general character of personal qualities. It also gave me a very, very good understanding of how the world works outside of school instead of in a classroom, and also how human nature reacts under very, very dire circumstances when there's shortages or hard times. And lastly, to realize how important it is to use self-discipline and self-respect. And for that, you mentioned something about a compass earlier in this conversation.
We need to talk about the compass story.
And that has a lens, a certain amount of overhang into the question you just asked me. Do we have time, Jim?
Let's get into the compass story, because I think it's actually a great way to conclude this.
All right, let's conclude that way. It all began when I was a little punkaroo kid, about 16 years old, somewhere in junior high school back home before the war started. A couple of guys at home said, "Come on, Hugo, let's have a cigarette." And Dad said, "You mustn't ever smoke." He never smoked, and I didn't. And I said, "Oh, okay, I'll try it one time." I didn't think my father was home, and but it was a rainy day, and he was home because he couldn't go to work. He worked outside. So for some reason, he was there, and he saw me, caught me, gave me one good wallop across the back of my britches. And I never smoked a cigarette since. And that taught me not to smoke at all. When we joined the Army after the war broke out a couple of years later, the Army was very generous about giving you free cigarettes in order to hook the cigarette companies, I should say, in order to hook all the young soldiers on smoking. So when they were discharged, they would buy cigarettes. The same thing happened with Wrigley chewing gum, by the way. Okay, so we had cigarettes given to us all the time in the service, even though my father and mother were nowhere around, if let's say I was far away from home, I could have smoked again, but my self-fortitude and self-discipline said, don't. We got into Normandy, and I had cigarettes on me that I would pass around to my buddies that were given to us. A lot of my buddies smoked. And after skirmish came out, and a couple of German soldiers came out with their hands up after skirmish and patrol or something, one of them said to me, German, haben Sie Zigaretten? And I said yes, because I didn't smoke and I had some that I'd saved. So I traded these packs of cigarettes. They weren't full packs. They were like about the equivalent of half packs. I can't describe them. And I gave him, and this German gave me a compass, which I still have. The face of it, Jim, is about the size of this circle right here. In we go to the Hurtgen Forest on patrol, somewhere in the smoke, in the snow and broken down forest. Light, it was very dark because the days were short in the winter. And I got lost with two of my buddies. And I said, holy smoke, how in the hell are we going to find our way back to our lines? We knew that if we walked north, we'd walk into the North Sea. If we walked south, we'd walk into the Alps. If we walked east, we would walk into the German armament, or German camps, and we had to walk west. But which way was west? The snow had covered all the trees, and the moss grows on the north side of a pine tree, and there was no, the trees were all bashed down. I couldn't find a single bit of moss. So I pulled my compass, of course, said, this way is west, this way is east. And I said, this way, fellas, this way we can walk and go west, And the next day, we found our way into the American lines again and regrouped with our unit. That saved my life, all because Daddy gave me one good hell of a wallop behind the hip pockets, and I obeyed his orders ever since.
And you're here to tell the story.
And here I am as a long-living non-smoker to tell the story, because most of the boys my age have passed away, of course. And so thank you, dear Dad, for giving me a good wallop, which I deserved and needed, but it did me more good than harm.
All right, that's a great way to end it, because there's a real lesson in that about
self-discipline,
and serendipity too. I mean, a German compass actually ended up saving your life.
There you are.
Yeah.
A good way to end it. If I can put in one last word, do I have time for another 1 minute? Okay. After I was discharged from Fort Leonard Wood, believe it or not, I hitchhiked clear around and across the United States. In those days, American soldiers and servicemen were just worshipped like God. You can go out on the street, the first car driving would pick you up and take you, ask you how far you're going, and you'd tell them, and they'd say, hop in, and they'd drive you as far as they're going, buy you lunch sometimes. And from Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, St. Louis, I hitchhiked across Kansas, across Nevada, across Arizona, and into Santa Monica, California, where for the first time in my life I saw the Pacific Ocean. And from the Pacific Ocean, Santa Monica, LA, California, I got a ride from Martha Ray, the movie star. She picked me up, and up I went clear. She took me around Hollywood, showed me all the star homes, bought me lunch and so forth. Then I went straight north to Seattle, to Vancouver, and then back clear to Salt Lake City, going back east. And from Boise, Idaho to Salt Lake City, none other than the famous baseball player Bobby Feller picked me up in his car and gave me a ride, a couple of 100 miles, and he had to get off at Salt Lake City, so he let me off there from Boise, Idaho. And then I hitchhiked across up to Canton, New York, stopped in on my sister, Carmen, who was a college student at St. Lawrence University, Canton, New York. Then I went south to home to Yonkers, New York. Now, and that took me about 6 weeks for the entire tourage. And every night we stayed at a USO hotel for $1 a night. I had enough money, and people were very honest at the time, very trustworthy, no worrying about getting blackjacked or hit on the head or kidnapped or anything else. As long as you had your uniform on, and people would just gladly pick you up in gratitude to take you for a hitchhike as far as you wanted to go. And I spent somewhere around, I think, Thanksgiving in Chicago at the big USO Center there. The Mormons put us up in Salt Lake City in one of their big units there that they had. We stayed overnight, and bed and breakfast for $1 for servicemen. And I got home somewhere just after Thanksgiving, and that was the end of my, I had been discharged. I had my discharge papers with me, a little satchel where I kept clean underwear and clean socks and a towel and bathing and bathroom shaving kit. And
you got to see the Pacific on your terms.
Yes, that was the first time I laid on the Pacific Ocean as a result of this 6-week hitchhiking tour that I took after being discharged from Fort Leonard Wood, October 25th, 1945, and I got home about 6 weeks later.
Wow.
And Mom and Dad were just delighted to see me again. But I just seen them 4 months earlier. So, and then I went to college 3 or 4 months thereafter.
It's a great story. You got to see it on your terms with 2 celebrities.
Martha Ray and the baseball player Bobby Feller, yeah.
Right, and...
No, not Martha, excuse me, Martha Ray's mother, I'm sorry. Martha Ray's mother, not her. Martha Ray's mother, the movie star. And her mother, she was just so grateful that she was taking a young soldier like me all around Brentwood and Beverly Hills and that whole, gave me a cook's tour of all where the celebrities lived, et cetera, et cetera.
Great stories, Hugo. Thanks for your time and going through all this again.
My pleasure, Jim. Let me show you the medal that I got the other day, Jim, for this. I told Dad about it. The French Croix de Guerre, right here.
There we go.
And if you pass me that box, the little red box, Jim, it's in there.
Okay.
Just show that to me. There's the French Croix de la Guerre in here that was just awarded to me the other day by one of these 8 men right here.
Have you been back to France since?
Yes, we were there for the 50-year anniversary, 1994. Summer of 1994, Elsie and I went back for the 50-year commemoration of the Normandy invasion.
Now, what was that like?
There was a big crowd, and there was a lot of celebrities there, a lot of people from all over the world, a lot of veterans. Oh, yes, and the one outstanding event, this was a reverse, if you can call it that. When I was wounded, I had the battalion doctor me up, and in World War II. And here, lo and behold, 50 years later, I met the same doctor, but he was in a wheelchair and I was pushing him around. Reciprocation. He did me the favor of bandaging me up when I got wounded in World War II. And here on the Normandy reunion 50 years later, I pushed him around as a gesture of goodwill in his wheelchair. He had his daughter and or his wife with him, but yeah, Dr. Dawson. Quite a nice old guy.
Thank you, Hugo, so much. It's been